Caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. It's all taken on new meaning in this age of consumerism. That's the subject we're going to be tackling in the next half hour.
This is Pittsburgh Women 79, a new program that looks at the changing roles of today's women in our increasingly complex society. And now, here's your host, Eleanor Schano White.
Good evening, everyone. So glad you could join us. Tonight we salute two of Pittsburgh's outstanding women. You might call them our guardian angels, our watchdogs. They are indeed consumer advocates. To my left, Bev Smith, who is the Allegheny County Consumer Affairs Director, and Sally Horsman, Vice President in charge of Consumer Affairs for the Better Business Bureau. My first question is, do your agencies overlap, and what's the difference between the Consumer Affairs Department for the county and the Better Business Bureau?
Good question. I get asked that question a lot, so I'm anxious to hear what Bev does.
It's going to be a fun show right away.
The Better Business Bureau is a nonprofit agency, and we're sponsored by businessmen. I think, Bev, that'll be one of the ways to start right off with, that we are different.
And you're sponsored by taxpayers.
Yes, we are. I'm your tax dollars at work, folks, so to speak. But we're a county-appointed office, and our budget is purely by taxpayers' dollars. The difference also is that they have a larger budget than we do. I want to get that in right away. They have a larger budget to do more than we do. However, the first question was, do we ever get together? And I think that we can say for the first time in a long time that the Better Business Bureau and the County Consumer Bureau are working hand in hand. We belong to many associate organizations. We call each other almost daily in terms of comparing information back and forth. And if there is a consumer problem that is too much for us to handle, you will find that with all the consumer agencies in our area in the county, we interlock, we interchange, and we're constantly helping each other.
Do consumers with complaints call both of your offices, or how do they decide whether this is one for the Better Business Bureau or this is one for the county consumer?
Well, they don't really, we're both available. Now, that's a good question, because I don't think many people know the differences. They will call us and say, as we had happened, we put in a complaint with your agency. Well, once interviewing the consumer, we find out that it was not, in fact, our agency, but it was the Better Business Bureau. When Sally talked with the consumer, it was not the Better Business Bureau, it was the county bureau. So very often the consumer is confused. The best definition is that the Better Business Bureau is designed by business to keep an eye on what business is doing, as I understand it, in terms of the consumer.
We're a mediator. Businesses really want to hear from consumers. I don't know whether you would agree with that or not, but they really do. They don't want you to just stop buying their product. I mean, if you have a complaint against a company and you don't alert the company, that's what we always say first. Call the company. What have you done? Have you talked to the company about this first? Then check with the Better Business Bureau or the County Bureau of Consumer Affairs. But don't just stop buying the product. The businessman is very concerned. He doesn't want you to do that.
I'm still confused. Most consumer problems do have something to do with business. It's sort of like the new yellow pages that came out. They say for people, for business. And every time I want to look something up, I keep thinking, well, wait a minute, everything is for people. I mean, we're sort of talking about the same thing here.
Well, yeah, for us it's difficult to separate, because we get calls from not only the businessman but from the consumer also. There are a lot of businessmen who have problems that are consumer related and need our services also. But the difference in our bureau, again, is that she is set up, her bureau is set up and is designed by businessmen to help regulate how business relates to the consumer. So, sort of the watchdog for the businessman. Our job is to be the protector for the consumer. We are appointed by the county commissioners to be the advocate and to be the informative center for the consumer. And that's, I think, where we vary.
Well, we're a mediator. I want to really stress that the Better Business Bureau is a mediator. We get a complaint, say, from a consumer. We don't consider that a complaint until we hear the business side of the story. And that's when we try and mediate. We start working on it, and quite most of our complaints are solved very quickly.
But Sally, question comes to mind. If you are funded by the business community, aren't you therefore somewhat biased in mediating? Aren't you going to, if you have to go one way or the other, you're going to take the side of the businessman rather than the consumer?
Actually, we are not. The people in the department who would be working on a complaint might not even know that the business happens to be a member. That could quite easily happen because they don't have a list that they check on. As I said before, business sincerely wants to hear these complaints. That's one of the reasons they're supporting the Better Business Bureau. They want to hear, keep up with what's going on in the marketplace.
You're talking now about the legitimate businessman.
Absolutely. Okay. The only supporters of the Better Business Bureau are legitimate. Absolutely.
However, there are a lot of the other kind out there operating.
That's the ones we get.
What are some of the biggest complaints that have been coming into your office lately?
Well, this week or this month, it's the emerald that's being offered in the newspaper.
Looks like a bargain to me. $5,
yeah, well,
$6.
$6, $5 for the cost of the emerald and $1 for the mailing charges. Does look like a good idea, but Ellie, any consumer in their right mind, and this is where we get into trouble, any consumer in their right mind knows that a precious stone offered to you for $6 doesn't sound right anyway, and you're crazy. And literally, folks, I mean, wherever the camera is, literally, folks, if you send your $6 in thinking you're going to get the type of emerald that is dropped in the shampoo bowl to find out if it sinks or not, you're crazy.
My daughter was about to, no, she called my attention to the ad and she said, Mother, this is a great deal. I said, you know, now, exactly what you're saying. Common sense says that they cannot be selling a gem for $5 or $6.
Well,
my response was, well, they wouldn't advertise in the paper.
Well, see, the paper does not necessarily mean that the company is or is not legitimate, because the newspaper or a media, for that matter, who carries an advertiser is in business to do business. And what they're doing is they're taking the product that is presented to them, and they're giving the information out. They don't check to see whether the information is legitimate or not. However, what we have found in the case of the medias that are running the ad, once we make them aware that it is a fraudulent ad, they will remove it almost automatically, and I think that goes without saying.
We have a very good working relationship with the newspapers, with radio and TV, and they're very cooperative when some misleading
what have you found out about the emerald?
I'm
curious.
I think that this emerald is a very good example. Since we couldn't do it with the circle of gold chain letter, I think this emerald is a very good example to tell consumers how they should begin to police the marketplace themselves. First of all, there were several things wrong with the ad right away. That the consumer, a little green light should have went off in the consumer's head. First of all, you sent your money to a post office box, and I am tremendously suspicious.
What do you do if you have to reach the company? You can't reach them at a post office. They're not making those emeralds in that little post office box, so there's no address at the company.
That's a problem. The second problem is that it is very difficult for those of us who are in the consumer advocacy business to regulate a company that is out of our jurisdiction. In other words, if it's in New York, if it's in Chicago, if it's in Toronto, Canada, we have to work in cooperation with the law enforcement agencies in that area. So when you send to a post office box in, let's say, New York, where this was being sent to, in New York or in Chicago or in Connecticut, we've got to go to the law enforcement people there, which takes longer for you to receive some sort of satisfaction, because we've got to go through the chain there, and every state has their own regulations. And so we have to go according to those regulations. So that makes it difficult. So when you see a post office box, send for the special grapefruit diet, care of post office box, 9 times out of 10, that's all it is. A guy comes to the post office box, picks up your envelope with the money in it, and he disappears forever. In this particular case, the person, the company, is not even a legitimate company. We have not been able to find it registered anywhere. That's number one. They had a notarized statement. The notarized statement was illegal also and fraudulent.
Has anyone received the
name
gem yet?
There was a name. I'm not to mention names. And the name is an assumed name. You actually think that this is maybe an expert or something that is going to authorize authorize this gem as being worth something.
But has anyone received the gem?
It's not a gem. It's a rock. It is a rock. It's the rawest, most rawest form of a stone. It is a rock, and we've checked with the jewelers.
It's probably worth about $5.
Well, it isn't even worth that much. It really isn't. According to the Jewelers Association right here in our own city, they say that if you took it to a jeweler to have him polish it and bring it up to what you would like it to be, they won't even fool with it, because it is of no value, folks. And that's the big point we want to make. You are paying $6 for a rock. But I've often said that if Sally and I wanted to go into an illegal business, what we would do is we would buy ourselves some clear plastic bags, and we would blow these clear plastic bags up, and we would have 3 sizes: nursery room size, living room size, and and house size. And we would say pure air from the Swiss Alps. And I can assure you that we could sell it underneath the Kaufmann's clock and make enough money to go to the Bahamas.
Sally, this is the thing that is amazing me. For years now, you consumer advocates have used the media. You have warned people. You have said, look out for the charlatans that come by and say we can pave your driveway because we have some asphalt left over from the woman down the street. Look out for the mail order. Look out for the door-to-door salesman, and yet people fall victim. Why? There is no free lunch.
Yes, it really is discouraging to me. I've looked back at some of our files going back 20 years, and it's the same thing. The Williamson gang, they come in and they say, oh, we're in your neighborhood, we could just fix your driveway for very low cost. And they do this year after year. We get out bulletins about it year after year. The consumers, I'm afraid, want to get something for nothing. We're greedy. We see a bargain, our eyes light up, and we just don't stop to use common sense. And that's the whole thing. If you'd stop, anybody comes to your door, stop, think a minute. On these mail order things, don't be so anxious to send away for them. That's our biggest area of complaints. It's your biggest area of complaints.
Well, and the difficult problem is that after the damage is done, you come to us, the consumer advocates, and you say, solve this problem for me. Get me my money back. And I'm going to tell you about a case now that is my, my Achilles heel, that is really a thorn in my side because we can't do anything about it right now. And it's a car leasing company whose name will go without saying, that is operating all across the country. And the file is in the hands of our district attorney's office and the feds right now, and they won't do anything about it. Now, I don't want to really, that's kind of strong language. They are doing something about it. They are preparing a brief so that they can take some action. They're not working fast enough to suit me. First of all, the guy is a criminal. He's a crook. He is defrauding the public. He did it before. He has a police record.
I wish you wouldn't beat around the bush. If you could just come right out and say what's on your mind.
He's a crook, folks, okay? And he promises people that for a set amount of money, he can get them a brand new car leased at a very good price. Now on the surface, because he advertised in the Wall Street Journal and all these really legitimate media forms, it looks like a good ad. And people from Tennessee, Florida, Chicago, New York, all over the country are responding to this guy who operates right out here. But they didn't check into the company reputation before. I mean, they're spending money, Ellie, not $6 for a stone. They're spending $2,500 for a car. The one guy put a $2,500 cash deposit in his 1973 Pontiac on a 1979 Buick LeSabre. Good deal, right? His car payments are going to be low, right? He drove the beautiful brand new car home, parked it in front of his car, went to bed, got up in the morning, and the car was gone because the original owner of the car came and got that car. That was the bank. Now, what about the guy's $2,500? What about the guy's 1973 Pontiac? What about the time and energy the fella has? Well, it's tough. He's going to wait until our law enforcement people get the brief prepared to do something about this guy. In the meantime, the guy is a parole violator. So we're upset because we want to give the name. I'm dying to say the name.
How many victims in this area?
So far in our office, we have 27 to 30 complaints. The district attorney's office has been working with it, so I don't know. But these are not little complaints, Ellie. We're talking about complaints that are anywhere from $500 to maybe $3,000. And one family, the mother put $2,500, the father put $500. You've got $3,000 and a car invested in this scheme. Now, if it crosses our state line, then the law enforcement people in the state where the crime was perpetuated are responsible for it. So that means that here we've got to kind of contain the guy, and then we have to alert people in other areas that this is going on. Nobody is alerting anybody because our law enforcement people are sitting on this guy's file, and he's already violating the parole. I said to our gendarmes, pick him up, arrest him, and let me warn my consumers that if you have money invested in this scheme, it is a scheme, or don't send away for it. I can't imagine why you would send from Tennessee to Pittsburgh for a leased car when you've got all these companies in Pittsburgh anyway.
Well, as you pointed out, as Sally pointed out before, because people are greedy. People think that they're really going to get a bargain.
That makes it so difficult.
But think of the hassle on these simple mail order items. People send away for things and they aren't what they want and they want to return it and so on. If it's a store in town, you don't have a problem if there's something wrong with the item. But it is a hassle to try and return things through the mail. I really wish people would shop at our good stores.
What about the door-to-door salesman? Any warnings?
Yes. Who goes first?
Don't open the door.
Literally.
Really,
literally.
don't open the door, please.
First of all, there's a matter of protection, and I think that everyone in your viewing audience is aware of the senior citizen that was killed right here on the north side because they opened the door up to a guy who was passing himself off to be a home improvement man. Okay, now we're not saying that all home improvement companies are rip-off companies.
But the legitimate big ones are not
They're
sending their
bonded,
salesmen door to door.
They're
not
they're
going-
bonded and they make good their merchandise. We have very shaky laws governing home improvement companies. If you decided you wanted to get out of television today and you know that you're very good with soldering, you can go into business tomorrow, Ellie, as a home improvement person. We'd like to see that changed. We'd like to see regulations put in effect that you've got to be tried, proven, and just about certified before you can open that door, because you're talking about consumer dollars, time and energy, and you're talking about property. When a person puts a porch up and the porch falls down, that's endangering that consumer's life. So I think that the message is to the consumer is that it's your money. Be careful what you do with it. But what we get is the person who says, I belong to that circle of gold. I don't see anything illegal with it because my neighbor picked up $3,000 or an emerald for $6.
Somebody down the line is not going to get any money out of it. They are illegal. It's that's the sort of thing we point out
and
to
the
people.
charlatans get richer and richer and richer.
Yes, and they're very smart and intelligent, and they know more
Very
about
good
the
at the job.
consumer laws than we do. They're able, and there's a very thin line. For example, in fraudulent advertising, all you have to really do is change words around, and you're complying with the law. Now, your intent may still be to defraud, but you've changed the language. And that is why for 1980, what we in the consumer business are going to be doing is telling consumers that you're going to have to begin to speak a consumer language.
All right, give us a little preview of that consumer language.
Okay, the consumer language, and this is all something that we're devising ourselves. There are consumer phrases that you use. For example, if you are calling a company to complain, first of all, you will say to the consumer, good afternoon, or to the company representative, my name is so-and-so and so-and-so. I purchased a refrigerator with a self-ice maker, and the ice maker does not work. May I speak to someone in your complaint department? Well, Miss So-and-so is out of the office right now. Can I help you? Rather than go into the complete dissertation with that person, find out.
Remain cool.
And at all times
cool.
remain cool.
Please.
Find out who the person is on the other end of the line. So the consumer language would be, may I ask who you are and what is your position with the company? Because you may tell your complaint to a secretary who will file it in file 13. You're sitting at home waiting for some results, and all you've done is told your complaint to a secretary who has no jurisdiction and can't do anything about it.
Companies, as a rule, do not have complaint departments. They don't have consumer complaint divisions. How about going right to the top?
That's their misfortune.
How about going right to the top?
Companies are. I've talked to a lot of people in big companies. The other day we got a letter in from a consumer. He happened to be in the state of Georgia. It was not all the spelling was quite correct, and I called it was about some advertising of a big corporation. And this man in Georgia felt it had been misleading, and he wanted to talk to somebody. And so I happen to know that they have a consumer relations department. I called up their consumer relations department. The woman said, oh, I'm so glad you brought it to my attention. Give me the address. I'll try and call him today. I was going to tell her I'd just send the letter over to her and she could take care of it, and I'd send him a letter saying what I'd done with his letter. But they wanted to be on it right away. It goes back to my saying that business wants to respond. I feel it's a duty for us to bring these things to the attention of the business. We get great response from business.
But to answer your question about who do you go to complain to, why not going to the top? Say, for example, you have just gotten, and the reason why this is brought to mind because we're working on an investigation right now that follows this example. Say, for example, she said again, that you have a home improvement contract, and in order to get the work done, you're going to have to borrow some money, and you borrow money from a finance company. The check is made out to you and the home improvement company, but the contract for the check is made out to you. Okay. First, you ought to begin to ask a lot of questions. Why was the check made out to two people and so forth and so on? But the important thing is what the consumer did, understanding the consumer language syndrome. What the consumer did is did not deposit that check or cash the check from the finance company until he saw the work was done properly. In this case, it wasn't. The work wasn't completed. The home improvement company has not even responded to the guy's complaint about the work not being completed. We called the manager of the finance company, who, along with our home improvement investigator, went out to the site and took a look at it and said to the consumer, send us back that check, we will release you from all obligations, and we will renegotiate a contract with you with a different contractor. That's unusual, but here was a case where the manager of a company operated in a method that was legitimate. He showed good business intent, and certainly at the end of the year, when we begin to publish reports on who we did business with, who's a good guy and who's a bad guy, he's going to get on our good guy list because he tried. You know, I've got a few that are going to get on our list.
Do you have such a list?
I think that the Allegheny County has done this before. They've published before a list, and we're going to do it again.
Does the public have access to such a list? If I am a little skeptical, and I'm not sure that I want to do business with a particular company, can I call you Sally? Can I call you Bev? And will you tell me what their record is?
Most of our calls, that's what most of our business is at the Better Business Bureau. We had over 100,000 people call us with what we call an inquiry. They wanted to know the background of a company before they did business with it. So that's our big area. And our files are made up from complaints that come in from other people. Therefore, I'm soliciting complaints. I want more complaints. Last year, we only got 13,000 complaints. We had 100,000 inquiries. People are trying, before they spend a lot of money on home improvement, buying a car, they are trying to check up on companies. But I want to hear from more people who are perhaps not happy. Every time I go out someplace, a dinner party or something, they say, what do you do at the Better Business Bureau? Oh, I had a problem. Boy, I get them. I say, oh, did you talk to the company? Oh, well, yes, but I couldn't get. I said, did you call the Better Business Bureau? Oh, well, and it's all our complaints have to be in writing. There's a very simple form that people fill out.
We should talk about that.
With instructions. It's not difficult. There's a place to check for what you want, whether you want a refund. See, a lot of times we find the company, it's not been made clear to the company what the consumer wants. The company is willing to do what the consumer wants, but they don't know whether the consumer wants a refund.
I don't know about that, Sally, my dear.
I can show you. Come over to my office. I'll show you.
I don't know in many
cases. The business said, well, why didn't they tell me that? I would have done that right away.
Well,
they just told me that.
Do you believe them, Sally? Do you really think you
But
don't
she's
think
the
that
Better Business Bureau.
Oh, we're a mediator.
I'm from the consumer side, and from the consumer side, many times the consumer will not only tell the company representative, but will go down the line saying this is exactly what they want. But I want to get back on this point about filling out complaints. If a consumer has a legitimate complaint, then doggone it, stand up and scream loud about it. And when we say to you, fill out a complaint form. If you can't write, if you can't spell, we have secretaries who will do the job for you. What we find is that people will say, oh, I'm not going to take time to fill out anything. Then why bother to call us in the beginning? Because we've got to have documentation. That means we need certain support information. If you have a contract that you're not sure of, or you feel you've been defrauded on a contract, send us a copy of your contract so that we can interpret what the contract says. If you have an original and you can't get to a copier machine, pay us a visit. While you're sitting there filling out the complaint, we will make a copy of it. We will give you back your original, and the copy is a part of our whole picture. Yes. We have to have a picture of what's going on.
Just reminds me, a good time to interrupt and explain exactly where both of you are located. Your office is where?
Our office, oh, I love to be able to.
Ours is easier to find.
I love to be able to say this. Our office, we're always upstaging each other. Our office is on the 3rd floor in the Jones Law Building Annex. That's on the Ross Street side. There are 2 banks of elevators, one on the 4th Street side, one on the Ross Street side. You come in the Ross Street side and you ask for Bev Smith or the Consumer Bureau. We're on the 3rd floor.
Same building with the county police, right?
Yes, and we are a division of the law department, so that if it's a real serious problem, we'll walk you right upstairs to the law department or right downstairs to the police department.
Is your name on the directory? Because I was in your building today, and I wanted to get to your office.
You had to bring that up, right?
Oh, well, no, I wanted to be there.
Oh, you have the directory in our office is the elevator operator.
Right, that's exactly what I did. See, I'm an intelligent person. I can find my way around.
We're very easy to get to.
Okay. And where is your office, Sally?
The Better Business Bureau is at 610 Smithfield Street. We're in the Smithfield building. It's right across from Gimbel's. It's in the same building as Brooks Brothers. The next door down is Stauffer's. After you see us, you can go down and have lunch.
Oh,
wonderful
I think this
location.
is marvelous. I mean, you actually are friendly competitors, but you're both of you are very sincere and very energized and full of enthusiasm, and you are working to help help all of us. We're all consumers.
Well, we do.
Yes,
we do more. We do more than just battle about what the Better Business Bureau does and the County Consumer Bureau. Sally and I belong to an organization called the Federal Executive Bureau, and this year we put together for the first time a Consumer-Rama, and we're very proud of what happened at that Consumer-Rama because it was a brand new concept. It certainly was brand new to the consumer. The consumer is used to people passing out information, but being able to see some of these people, we were very pleased because we had Terry O'Rourke from the Energy Department come right down and talk to the people.
Thousands of people turned out.
I mean, it was
and if I remember, it was a rainy day.
It was a terrible day.
Yeah,
We were so
down,
concerned.
The response was fantastic.
We were very pleased.
We've been talking about a lot of the problems with dealing with merchant services. Is there such a thing as truth in advertising? How about the claims that advertisers make on television commercials and newspapers, so on and so
Well,
forth?
the Federal Trade Commission has a truth in advertising law, so there is a law that stipulates what an advertisement can say. But what you've got to understand, we talk about tax dollars in opposed to businesses who set up companies to regulate themselves. We are tax dollar operated, and that means that our funds are limited. The consumer is an interesting species in that he is willing to spend his money for certain things, but in the form of protection, the tax dollars always get cut. So the problem is not that the laws aren't there. The problem is getting people hired to enforce those laws. And the greatest example of that is the Department of Energy, who has all these fantastic regulations but cannot enforce them because they don't have the people hired to do that. Our job then becomes much more difficult because we have to take the little bit that we have to work with and make a lot out of it. We've been very fortunate. That's because we have formed an alliance with the Better Business Bureau, and we've got to mention our State Bureau of Consumer Protection out of the Justice Department. Bob Edmondson is the director there, and that young man works harder than any one man I know trying to protect consumer rights.
All the answers. If I ever have a question about one of the laws, a credit law, I call him.
There's no question about it. Consumers have more rights today than they have ever had in the past. They have more help. They have fine people like you, Bev, and you, Sally. Do you think perhaps that the consumer, though, is not assuming enough responsibility in some cases?
Do you want to be the bad guy?
We only have about 2 minutes.
I feel very strongly, and I think we've brought that out a couple of times here in this discussion, that we talk to the consumer. We've been telling them the same thing for years. I can go back in my files, and we're still buying the same questionable goods that we've been buying for years. To mention about advertising, I just want to put this in. The Better Business Bureaus were originally founded to regulate advertising. Businesses realized that maybe their advertising was misleading. There was a chance. They didn't really admit that. But they wanted to keep on top of their advertising, and there's still a division of the Better Business Bureau that does check on advertising. We get calls in from competitive companies about other advertising of a competitor. So that's how we hear a lot about advertising, and then we go to work with the media on the advertising.
Actually, I think it's probably all just a matter of common sense. Everybody's looking for a bargain, especially in the condition of our economy today.
And it's going to get worse. We didn't even have time to talk about what the consumer is going to be facing in the 80s. The fact that he's going to have to double his earning power. His dollar is not going to go just as far as it used to. And when I was in Washington 2 weeks ago, the point was that even a loaf of bread may be costing us $2 in the fabulous 80s. So what the consumer has to do is realize that you get nothing for nothing. Anything of value is worth investing money in. Take a little time. You don't have to buy that furniture that night because your husband said, yes, honey, I'll give you the charge account. You don't have to run to the first car dealer. My God, with used cars, we could do a whole program. Take some time and call Bev Smith at 355-5402 or
call the Better Business Bureau 456-2700. It's a new phone number.
Or better still, call them both. Register your complaint with both Bev and Sally. We could go on and on and on because I know there are so many areas of, especially people looking for bargains today, food and clothing. Bev, I think we can make mention of the fact that on Tuesday you're going to be with us on Good Day Pittsburgh, and we're going to be talking about some consumer tips concerning food shopping and those generic brands.
Those generic brands,
Are
yes.
they really the bargain that you're looking for? So you tune in on Tuesday at 11:30 and right here on TV 53 for Good Day Pittsburgh, and we hope to have both of you back again.
We've enjoyed
because
it.
this
It's
is
been fun.
Lots of fun.
a big subject. It's a very important one,
Yes.
and it's been great fun. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us again next week at 10 o'clock for Pittsburgh Women 79. Have a nice evening, everyone.
This has been Pittsburgh Women 79. Be sure to join us every Sunday at 10 for a look at today's women. This has been a public affairs presentation of WPGH TV.